From July 5th to 14th, a historic experiment is taking place around the world. A global meditation to invite peaceful extraterrestrials to show themselves with thousands of light ships across the sky. During this window in time, a planetary alignment will create an opportunity for us to unite and envision a bright future for our planet. This 10-day event will bring humanity together in this time of unprecedented change to rise up and unify. Indigenous cultures and prophecies have told us of star beings standing with us, ready to help and support our transition to a better future. The Harmonic Convergence 2020 will bring together elders, leaders, artists, and experts to guide us through a transformational journey. The last day will culminate in a global meditation to make contact with our universal family. The impact of this collective experience could usher in a new era of unity, love, and reverence for all life. It is time for us to step up and take action to shape the future of this planet. We are human, and we are not alone.
Hello and welcome to the Harmonic Convergence 2020. I'm your host, Shariah Dharma. So grateful to be here today with wonderful guests whom I've known for years now. And in fact, one of these wonderful people, Alan Steinfeld, I've known for a couple of decades even. Alan is renowned for his conscious evolutionary work called New Realities. He's been doing interviews with some of the leading edge teachers of new consciousness, higher thought, extraterrestrials, extra dimensionality, you name it. Anything on the leading edge of thought, Alan's been talking to these people for years now. And he's actually got a new book coming out soon called Making Contact. And you can find out more about him at his website, New Realities. Is it newrealities.com, Alan?
It is newrealities.com. Also on my YouTube channel, youtube.com/newrealities.
So really a treat to have you here, to be reunited here, along with your dear friends, Doctors JJ and Desiree Hurtaks, who are also very well known in the conscious evolutionary space of leaders around the planet who have been just pulsing the planet with high vibrations, new information, all of the leading edge stuff that we need to sort of navigate. And basically, these guys are what you'd call investigators of the unknown. They're futurists, explorers, and social scientists. And JJ is perhaps best known for writing the book, The Keys of Enoch. And he had a very mystical experience in which he was brought up into other dimensions and in order to be able to write this book. So hopefully we'll get to hear about it a little bit today. And in fact, this is how much of a hallmark and landmark this book is. Culturally, it has influenced many artists, including even Carlos Santana. And the song Supernatural is based on the Keys of Enoch. So it's definitely a turnkey piece that has helped us all guide ourselves in these times and into what is their favorite topic, which is co-creating our future and the future potential of humanity, especially regarding the youth and leaving them with a legacy that they can actually work with here on the planet. And so without further ado, I welcome you all to the show. You all say that we are non-local beings, and I'm sure a lot of our listeners would want to know more about that and what that actually means.
Well, I'll start off because we are taught culturally that this is you, this is your body, this is your identity, and that we don't go any further than, than our skin. But really, in a sense, where do we go when we're sleeping? Where do visions come from? What's intuitive knowing a part of? It's a part of something that Jung called the collective consciousness. And we essentially are that. We are not these false avatars. We are these beings that inhabit all of consciousness. So when I teach remote viewing, which I've taught, as the light comes through, you see the light comes through? No, but as I've taught remote viewing where people project their minds into a location, or and they really get the target of that location. I say, okay, I'm thinking of something, or here's a picture of something, and they are able 90% of the time to somehow intuit a non-local location that I'm either thinking of or holding a picture of without them seeing. And how can people do that except for the fact that basically who we are is a part of eternity. Our consciousness really is not localized here. It is everywhere. So anybody you want to know about, any information you want, any access in time space is available to us once we break down the barriers of our cultural conditioning and realize who we really are as human beings.
If I can add to that, Alan mentioned remote viewing, and I know some people aren't familiar with this, but there were scientists literally sitting here in Northern California where we are, and they were able to see things in New Orleans, in Russia, and they could come back. In fact, one of the biggest things was when these remote viewers actually spied on the National Security Agency's top secret files, and they actually got the names of the files. They got the names of the programs that were all classified. It's just an example of this. So how did they do that? And basically what these remote viewers would tell you, and all of us can do this. This is what's so exciting. Once we know we can do it, we can start practicing and start doing it more and more ourselves, is that basically they are there. They're not like going, sending and getting information, bringing it back. No, they're actually physically, consciously, their consciousness is non-local, which means it's over wherever they want to be. And I think that happens to us in our dream state and other things like that. And we see in this picture, which is actually a picture I put together here, that, this is who we are. Our mind is expanded.
We're within a consciousness network. You could think of it as energy geometries that our mind is always using, always working with. And Desiree and I are talking from Silicon Valley in Northern California, which is also the place of Stanford Research Institute. And we had the opportunity over the last 30 some years to work with the top scientists who at first were skeptical that there were things that we would be able to see at a great distance. But through the introduction of studies, this led to the ability of what is called remote viewing, the ability to go beyond locality of the 3-dimension and see the other dimensions that were connected with this. This woman is looking out from her perspective. She's beginning to see the interconnection of all of the interesting geometries. And this is the whole key, that non-locality is the connection of the inner and the outer at the same time. It's going beyond the artificial construct of space and time, meaning that we are in all space at all time.
And we are all interconnected. I think that's what's so important. We're told that we're separate, as Alan was saying, but we're really not separate. We're all feeling each other all the time. We're all psychically connecting with each other all the time. And wherever we want to go, if we want to know something, even though it's not in our faces or someone didn't call us on the phone, we can still know it. That's what's amazing. And we've been limited to think that we are not that. Animals can do it, actually. And oftentimes plants pick up on vibrations.
And we have had the opportunity to work with the indigenous elders or the other minority peoples and tribes throughout the world.
The Amazonian Indians, for example.
And we see here in this picture I'm holding before the screen, if you can see this on the top right of your screen.
If we can go back to gallery, yeah, great.
We're going to see this picture of what is called lady cloth weaver, the strands of life and reality being merged into a greater totality of the birds, the doves, the features of nature converging with the way we look at life as a bigger blueprint, a bigger cosmic picture. And that, again, illustrates the fact that we're thinking in mental pictures and hearing music at all time, but we're generally suppressing that by the rational use of knowledge.
Yeah,
and now,
I just wanted to jump in there for a second because there's the Hindu myth called the net of Indra. In the net of Indra, sort of like that picture that Desiree made, every point in time space is directly connected to every other point in time space. So when Einstein talked about spooky action at a distance, he was just talking about the speed of light, not the instantaneous awareness of every point affecting every other point instantly, because we are all connected.
And I want to say behind all of this is consciousness. Now we go along with what the Keys of Enoch said, as well as what Ling McTaggart's talked about, that there's a consciousness field that we are all a part of. So when you go back to this lady cloth weaver or spider woman in the Hopi tradition, you find out that basically they say every star in the universe is placed there based on a consciousness arrangement. It's not an arrangement, and this is so important for Harmonic Convergence 2020. It's not just because of this Earth. It's a cosmic arrangement about beings in Orion and beings in the Pleiades. And
so when you begin to think in cosmic picture, suddenly the inner door of the mind begins to open, and you begin to see things here in the third dimension, things that are in the other dimensions. That is officially called non-locality. It's the greatest breakthrough in science and the discovery of the atom, that we are connected with consciousness throughout the universe.
And it simply means non-locality. For those of you who don't want to look it up, it simply means the fact that they can actually split twins of electron particles or atomic particles, and they can tweak one to move in one place and instantaneously, even at a distance up in a satellite, the other one moves. So it's non-local awareness. Right. Even the particles themselves have this non-locality, and scientists have absolutely proven it.
Right. So what do you think about that, Sharia?
Well, yes, I have experienced remote viewing and being psychic. And I remember back in 2005 becoming aware that I was seeing from a different perspective. Like I could see the whole Earth, and I could zoom in, or I could zoom out, or I could do whatever I needed to do based on information that I needed. So that kind of awakening did happen with me, and it continued. In other words, there's no end to the growth and the learning around this, because we haven't trained ourselves to use it every day. And so I guess that would be a question for you guys is, how can people apply this knowledge in a basic way that helps them feel grounded and, secure in their earthly state while they go expansive?
Well, we have to start with children and being taught at an early age that they're not just their name, their gender, their identity, but they're part of something bigger. Now, if children were taught that, then they'd have more respect for the earth. They have more respect for each other. They would know that there's no separation between me and you. When you feel pain, I feel pain. So it's very practical, but we need to re-educate the educators who are also very stuck within a certain Western model that obviously hasn't worked. It's taken us to the brink of destruction. And we now, the harmonic convergence, the convergence of harmony, like the original one that was in 1987, was about a new time and a new destiny and a new story for Earth. And the new story starts with the children and graduates into all of humanity. And this is why I love the work of the Hurtaks, because they travel around the world with their essential teachings of this higher consciousness. And I'm very happy to be here with them.
And I often say to people, if we're not children or we're adults and we have cell phones, one of the ways you can develop your own remote viewing or sensitivity is to, like, before you pick up your cell phone to see who it is, think of who it is. And oftentimes Alan and us, I'll be saying, oh, I need to call Alan. And I go, oh, it's too late because he's in New York and we're in California. And within 2 minutes, he's calling me because he picked up on
I just feel, because I feel, oh, I should call. I really get that message. And there's a flash of them coming into my mind. And I just, thought is instantaneous like that.
Yeah, and Desiree and I have collected more than 200 experiments at Stanford Research Institute called Mind Dynamics in Space and Time, available on Amazon. And here all of this is illustrated. So the skeptics can realize that this is the real X-Files, of being able to see through walls, go into different parts of the world, even see under the ocean, the pyramids off the coast
of Florida,
and also temples off the coast of Yonaguni, Japan. So we were able to show the skeptical engineers and the young students at Stanford University in Berkeley how they had additional powers of the mind, just like a musician can hear vibrations from space and compose music, like the Beatles. We all have this ability to compose and to recompose.
Right. And Desiree made a great point with the cell phone, because every cell phone is connected to every other cell phone. This is a non-local device.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter where you are.
Actually, the non-local device is really your head, but
Yeah, it's a metaphor for this.
it happen right away.
So this is the good news for the 21st century. And I know a lot of the young people are looking for hope and direction at a time of geopolitical change, the problems of health, the problems of economics. But this is an opportunity to use the powers of the mind to raise the bar, to realize that we can go into a higher cosmic vibration and actually use this to better our health, communicate without technology if necessary, and simply to change cultural and social attitudes to be more in unity, because we all share the same higher consciousness if we wish.
So Sharia,
Go ahead. I was just going to say, we can do this if we train ourselves. Yes, Desiree, you were saying?
yeah, no, I was turning it over to Sharia because I know.
Oh.
Yeah, I was just, I mean, it sounds like we're talking about multidimensionality here and functioning in multidimensionality. So
Well,
how would people navigate this whole multidimensional scenario that we have, that we are typically not aware of?
Well, I would say first and foremost, we talked about this consciousness field that Lynn McTaggart talks about, which means that everything that I think goes up into this consciousness field. And actually, sometimes in the morning when I'm waking up, for example, I download from that consciousness field. So you can download positive thoughts, negative thoughts, information from around the globe. But what about other dimensions? I think that's what you're asking. And the concept is, in terms of the Keys of Enoch in our cosmology, is that we're not even just beyond the third dimension and fourth dimensional space-time. We're actually fifth dimensional beings. We can actually tap into our higher self. And we think that there is like a higher self in other dimensions. And that higher self also gives us information, works to guide us. And even if you don't want to believe your own higher self exists, then there's those energies that are connected with, we'll say, beings that guide us.
So here we see in the next picture a spiral of energy in the center coming from our planet. And then we see what we call whole light beings, or higher beings of intelligence, our cosmic guides. We call them also ultra-terrestrial life forms and even extraterrestrial life forms. They exist from other dimensional levels in the greater universe. We're beginning to define the universe as a consciousness rather than a physics that is, shall we say, not complete. We're beginning to realize that we're part of an interweaving process of that which is within us in our consciousness, as well as the cosmic consciousness of our planetary mind, and ultimately our galactic creation.
So we talk about extraterrestrials, but then also we believe in ultra-terrestrials as well, which are these beings existing in other dimensions. They don't need a UFO to come here, although some beings do, but they can come as energies of light. They can actually give us information. They can feed us information into that consciousness awareness field. And that's where these synchronicities start coming in. The synchronicities are amazing that can happen to people once they start reaching beyond their local reality. So go ahead.
No, just the experience that happened to Dr. J.J. Hurtak there, where he was able to, with his body, to go to those other realms, and then in the subtler bodies go beyond that, shows that we all have a capacity to do that, to be multidimensional, but no one is telling us that we can, which just this idea and word. So we want to make this a practical application that you can do this. This is possible for each of us, like these pictures show, to activate the biophotonic potential within the cellular structures and become light.
Yes, this is part of the process that is necessary to use visualization to bring together the emotions, the intuitions, all of the feelings into a greater vibratory structure. And when we can do this, then we can see a larger blueprint of evolution that we're connected with.
And I actually think this is what meditation is all about. You know, some people are into the Zen meditation, going out into the nothingness. But, you know, what we found out from a book Dr. Tech wrote with the famous remote viewer, Russell Targ, is that the nothingness is actually part of the all. And that means you can get everything from everywhere. So we can actually bring in information that's not even connected with this planet. We can bring in information and solutions that are universal. And that goes for wisdom and knowledge and even the power of understanding what's going to be in the future versus what's being in the past. There's all this information that's part of what we can bring in. And meditation is the key to some of this. Because,
and the information has to be connected with the way we see things in terms of the picture aspect of consciousness.
But meditation is key because our minds are infinite. That's really what I think we're trying to say. Who we are, this little device we carry around on our necks is an interdimensional, multidimensional computer in a sense. It's a relay of all knowledge if we know how to use the software.
That's right. Now, if we can go back to the normal screen for a second.
And I'm just wondering, like how those beings that we see there, I'm going to put us all on the screen so we can see everybody side by side here. Those beings that we saw in that absolutely gorgeous picture there, how do you think that they got to that state where they can ride around in plasma ships and come and go as they please and bilocate and all that stuff?
It's more like, how did we get here? Everyone, and it's hard, but this is part of our cosmology that we teach. Yeah. Everyone thinks everything came from here, or they're beings that passed away and then got to the other side. We say, no, this is a vast and awesome universe. And not only is there great amounts of intelligences, which scientists are now accepting, even in our own galaxy, that just came out recently by some top scientists. But actually, we're going to find there's beings in other dimensions, and they've been there all along. Some of them have been there forever, longer than we've been here, that's for sure.
And the greatest thinker in remote viewing was also a great artist by the name of Ingo Swann. This is the picture that he made for the book I wrote with Russell Targ, who was the leading scientist. It shows how the human mind is like a cosmic egg, and within the human mind, you can see a whirling galaxy, which means part of the universe is within ourselves. We are humans. We're planetary humans, we're solar humans, but we're also galactic humans.
And we're cosmic multidimensional humans.
And as we scale up, we begin to see that what holds us together are the, shall we say, convergence of the artistic, the musical, the sacred geometry of the transphysical, and then the spiritual blend that brings the heart-centeredness into the picture. All of these basic factors have to be there in the larger blueprint. Otherwise, we're in black and white reality and we don't move very much.
And this is all part of consciousness. And that's why it's important for every one of us, no matter where we reside, to put positive energy into the consciousness field. And in addition to that, when we download thoughts, which we're doing all the time, we consider ourselves biotransducers. We're sending and receiving
or energy vehicles.
Yeah, that we actually download positive thoughts, because that helps for healing, that helps for moving forward. In fact, quantum physics tells us there's multiple possibilities in reality. So never feel that there's only one possibility. There's multiple possibilities. And the more you reach out to these higher realities, the more you'll find the positive solutions for your life and be in the right place at the right time. I think that's so important for all of us, especially now.
Besides that, though, she asks, how do you get to be those transcendent light beings? It's an evolution. Like everyone has said, this is a classroom and there's many grades in here. And we have to look at ourselves. Self-development is really key. And like Desiree was saying, and JJ, how much are we going to accept who we are as expanded consciousness? The more we accept the impossible, the unlikely, the creative, that's what our connection is, and creativity. The more we open up to the infinite, the more we become that. And so we start to graduate to higher and higher levels of vibratory, biological movements. And if you get it right for one moment, you can have what Dr. J.J. Hurtak had, where, boom, he's out of here for a moment and he's transcended.
And yes, you hit the nail on the head. It's the vibratory movement, because without the vibration of experience, all of this is just abstract. You can see behind our heads all of the artifacts we have from different world cultures, but they're all pointing to the higher reality that we are united through the cosmic self, the I am that I am, And if Desiree can move slightly to her left, you will see that over the head of the initiate at the bottom of the picture to our rear, you will see a beam of light come from the top of the head into a cosmic grid. And from the cosmic grid, you see the universal pyramid or the triangulation of knowledge.
So in a sense also, don't forget, our cosmology is we actually have a higher self, and that higher self is projected down into this planet or another planet, depending on where we need to be, our physical reality.
But it has to go beyond the arbitrariness of the grid of space and time. We have to be able to break the veil, so to speak. And that's the whole purpose of the historic use of the tankas, of the sacred pictures, to activate the sensory nature of both the left and the right, the male and the female side of the mind. And when that vibration comes through, then the door is open to your work as a co-creator.
That's beautiful. Yeah, I love that. And I guess it could be also said that, perhaps some of us already are or were, we all come from source and we're having an incarnation experience. So we have to sort of flip our perspective of who we are, rather than thinking we're this lower being raising up. We're actually a grand being having a physical
Yes.
all of that, and then returning back to that larger self.
But enjoy it while you're here, too.
Enjoy right here. This strange thing called limitation. Oh my goodness. Well, tell us a little bit more about the Keys of Enoch, and that sounds like a really fascinating experience that you had. And you left the body, you went into these higher dimensions, and who were you speaking with exactly? Where did this information come from?
Well, first of all, this goes back to 1973. I was a young professor. I was teaching with the Disney Corporation, California Institute of the Arts in Southern California. And as you may or may not know, for many years, I had studied with the Tibetan scholars, the Buddhist scholars, the scholars of the ancient Near East, the Coptic texts, the ancient biblical records, and they all spoke of the higher light or the mystical light. And for many of the scholars and teachers, this was just simply a poetry. There was no real reality behind it. And so I began to experiment, having some musical background. I began to combine the vibrations of the sacred names, both of the East and the Middle East, the East and the West, and by intoning and vocalizing these names together with the visualization of the opening of the heavens into the pillar of light, suddenly that event took place. I went into what we will call a morphogenic consciousness change, where a door, perceptual door opened before my eyesight, and through a intense light that was in the form of a sphere that grew larger and larger, I saw a face. And that spiritual guide, whose name was Enoch, or as it is called Enoch, or Idris in the Hebrew and Aramaic, took me into another dimensional reality. Physically, I was bilocated. For 2 days, I was gone. When I came back, there was light emanations around my body, which my students could see and photograph. And at the end of the program today, I will show you an event that took place some 25 years after that time, where I had light appear to me no matter where I would go, if I would use the vocalizations or sacred mantras.
So what he saw was actually a history of this planet, also the future of this planet, and 4 horsemen, I think, would be one of them. He wrote that in the Keys of Enoch, the importance of that, and that's where the plague comes in. And then in addition to that, he was shown the cosmology of the heavens, because he was taken through different gateways and different realities. So,
and William Blake is the great British poet, mystic, has shown this as the dancing person. And then Desiree has elaborated on this to show the other dimensional aspects of being in pure nakedness, where you surrender yourself to the divine and ask that you be used for human upliftment, human work, and human service. And then you see over the top of Blake's picture, you see the higher self coming down to meet with the human self. What does this mean? It means that we are all interconnected on the higher frequency. Yes, we are biological 3-dimensional beings, but we are multidimensional spiritual beings. And that is the experience I had, to see that there would be a unity between all of the major spiritual, mystical, and scientific traditions that would accept the fact that we are evolving into the pure light.
But the Keys of Enoch talk about the alignment of the Great Pyramid with Orion, which wasn't known at the time. This is back in the 70s.
The three stars in the belt of Orion.
It talks about the importance of Orion as being a place of star birth and star death, also not known in the 70s. So there was a lot of things that Dr. Tech pointed out, but I think most importantly is the fact that we live in a multiverse, which is now scientifically accepted, multidimensional reality, and that our reality is really a very small part. You know, the whole ancient cosmology is that it was, you know, the heaven, the earth, and the underworld, and that was it. Everything was focused on this planet. Well, we don't buy that for a moment from what he saw. We're just a little teeny part of this greater cosmic whole.
I just want to say, when you have an experience like Dr. Hurtak described, that is a life-changing event. You are then dedicated to spirit and the unfoldment of the higher teachings here. Like you've been singled out, but I think we are moving into a sacred time. I think this is the harmonic convergence that we're moving into, where all of us can express the fact that we're sacred beings, that the transcendental nature of existence is knocking on all of our doors. We are ascending. So what happened to JJ was an actual ascension. Many people talk about ascension. Not many people have done it. I'm happy to be associated with someone who's actually done that. But this is where we're going. This is why I think Mark Sims was so visionary in marking this time as the next phase, especially as we come out of this global crisis. You know, crisis is always opportunity. So reality has already shifted for 8 billion people on this planet. Are we going to make it to the next level where we want to create the realities we want? We have this chance right now to start to vibrate at that higher level.
Absolutely. We must, shall we say, use the best energy we have to focus on the highest level of helping the human race, realizing that we have cosmic brothers and sisters in space who are waiting to see us grow up, who are waiting to see us as we're sublimate our energies into positive uses of creative arts, sciences, and spiritual unity. And this is the whole drama of my experiences, to realize that we have cosmic counterparts who are part of a, shall we say, a larger evolution, the Keys of Enoch called the higher evolution. We are going from the human evolution to the higher evolution, from the Homo sapien to the new humanity of space kind, with no limits of three-dimensionality. Even life and death as we define it here ultimately will be cured in the world of the future, where our DNA and RNA will be re-engineered through spiritual and musical vibrations.
That's so beautiful to think about, isn't it? Now, speaking of these times that we're in currently, I think there's been a lot of ancient prophecy, and I know that you guys know a lot about what the ancients said about this very time that we're living in. Could you share a little bit about that?
Well, of course, biblically, we actually do feel we're in the time of the four horsemen. The fourth horseman is the one connected with plague, even though plagues have come around about every 100 or couple hundred years. But, you know, there's also a lot of other things. If you go to the East, you also talk about the Kali Yuga. And many of the people in India also feel that this is also a similar time where things aren't as positive. So it's really forcing all of us to make decisions. The choices are now ours at this point.
And we are members, honorary members of one of the great indigenous tribes in Brazil called the Chavantes. And they have told us in their traditions of prophecy, when Mother Earth begins to cry and things begin to move into, shall we say, environmental collapse, those from the star nations will return to this earth. They say this is the time that the heavens will open and our brothers and sisters will hear us if we cry on higher vibrations of music. We find this also in the traditions of the...
I've been crying. I've been crying out.
we heard you. We heard you.
Hey, I think it's
together.
the time. Okay.
It's a synergy, all the voices together. It's just not one person, it's all of us together. And this is the symphony of the spheres, the symphonic synergy of energies that are opening the sacred corners of the earth, with the Hopi referred to as the four corners in our country, the four corners of the heart. The four corners of Mother Earth have to go through this together. In the biblical language, it's the valley of the shadow of death. And the interesting aspect is in the Tree of Life teachings, the mystical traditions, of the Judaic and the Christian tradition, we can put on the crown, the corona of light or death, depending upon how we use our consciousness. So we must see that we're going to make it through this plague situation, this economic depression situation, this political dualism situation. We must realize that we are here as beacons of light, as we are avant-garde spokespersons for a whole new vibration from the young people that will open up the heavens and the earth into be unified.
I just want to add one more thing about prophecy, because based on the original harmonic convergence that we know, Sharia, August 16th and 17th, 1987, the Mayans saw an alignment that was going to be happening 25 years from that. It was the recycling of the camera, and that alignment was the Earth, the Sun, and the center of the galaxy. So what I think the harmonic convergence initiated was the fact that we were part of a galactic family. And that year they discovered 4,000 exoplanets, exo-Earth-like planets. So it's the beginning of this time of welcoming us into a greater environment. And now we are in the reinitiation of this greater cosmos, this greater brotherhood. These other beings are welcoming us if we can rise to the occasion, if we can meet them on their level. So this is the prophecy of the galactic family that is waiting for us if we can fulfill our tasks of growing up, basically, you know?
And that has a lot to do with how we guide our thoughts and our consciousness on a day-to-day basis, doesn't it?
Absolutely. No, we're here to watch ourselves, all the automatic programming, get rid of all the dogmas, all the old conditioning, so we can be the human beings that we were meant to be. Until we can become human, we're not going to meet the other beings directly, because they're waiting for us to become who we are.
And ironically, this is seen also in the biblical book of Daniel, Old Testament channel, or chapter 12, that speaks of things speeding up. All knowledge will speed up, and members of the human race, that is to say those who work with the higher teachings of the Most High, will be connected with the intelligence of the Most High, the star fields.
Right. And this is what the Mayans saw. This is where we're at.
Right, we're seeing the breaking down of the old paradigms of exclusivity and the opening of the ecumenical paradigms of unity, and also pluralism in the genuine sense of the divine guidance of the divine, shall we say, cosmic others, who are carefully bringing us together.
And you know, we're not the only ones that pick up on each other's thoughts. And this is something that most people who work with extraterrestrial realities know, that they pick up on our thoughts. And, you know, half the time they don't even want our thoughts. We're so negative, we're so separate, we're so limited. So I think this is so important. I know this is one of the things we were going to talk about, Sharia. Do you want to?
Yes, I was going to say, yeah, we're going to talk about how, you know, well, why haven't they come yet? And, you know, what makes them want to come, and we've kind of been covering that.
They have come. We are too dense to notice it. Telepathy, as Desiree was saying, is the language of universal thought, and that's why meditation is so important, because then we start to bring in thoughts. And, you know, psychology has done a great service for us, understanding itself, but it's done a great disservice in mistrusting our own mind. So when you get a thought that seems to be from some other place, you're not going crazy. You are actually accessing the universal consciousness. So, like, talk about this plasma ship and the telepathy that happened.
I was involved with Jaime Maussan, a noted journalist in Mexico City years ago. I actually brought him into an awareness of the science of extraterrestrial studies. And we were in turn connected with a young man by the name of Carlos Diaz in the little city of Tepoztlan, Mexico, where he began to see these plasma ships at night.
And he actually went into them as well.
He passed through the plasma into a different reality. And Jaime Maussan, the great journalist, bought him a camera. So this is part of an actual film that was analyzed at the University of Mexico, where they saw this was a living a type of plasma form of intelligence.
But it's important to know that it's not always nuts and bolts. A lot of people have looked for, where's the hammer that, makes the nail in the UFO, but that's not necessarily the only ships. I mean, there are these energy ships.
And one just appeared over at the Pentagon in December of 2018. It was an actual pyramidal shape.
There's a whole technology waiting for us as we graduate from the industrial age. The age of these ships are living beings that are directed by thought, that are multidimensional, that can go in and out of spaces. We're living in a very primitive kind of technology. And what's coming, if we could grow up and not use it to create bombs and weapons, is an incredible technology that will change our planet and help us live in a utopia that we're supposed to be in.
But if you really listen to the reports, and some of this is going to be in Alan Steinfeld's new book coming out next year, we've done a chapter in it, a lot of it is telepathy. And it's not just that they're standing in front of you and talking to you. Some of it is very cosmic. I mean, these beings can be in Jupiter and picking up on your thoughts. It doesn't matter once you've made that connection. So there's a lot of interconnectedness. And for the most part, until we graduate, which is clearing up some of our negative thinking and go into more of a positive, helpful mode of reality, we're not going to make that deeper connection with them or the ultra-terrestrials.
So the plasma ship was seen over the area of the pyramids of Tepoztlan. This is very important.
Just south of Mexico
And the
City.
event that was seen over the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. was also a plasma pyramid. And it matches the one in the Keys of Enoch. The very first picture in the Keys of Enoch, published in 1973, shows that we will begin to see these energy forms. We will call these geometric forms that will school us to reinterpret the ancient signs. You see here the pyramidal shape of the multicolors. This is a code of how all branches of the human race will be drawn together and synchronized to go from the third dimension to the fourth, to fifth, and so on and so forth. And the energy sphere of the light around it, of course, is connected with the ancient biblical scroll of Esther, which means the female side of human consciousness must be accelerated. In other words, only through a greater compassion and love can all of this have a greater meaning. We are here as part of a human family, growing up to become part of a divine or galactic family.
But there's many, many beings out there. There's many different races. There's many different levels of consciousness. But the idea is that we are actually equal to them. We have the divine facility to meet them on their own ground. So we don't have to be afraid of anybody. We can drop into who we really are at our core and meet the other as equal. And I think that's important for people to know. We are that.
And it's important to know that anybody who doesn't come at you with that kind of attitude might not be the right folks to hang out with.
Right. I mean, we think there's many, many, many beings out there, and some are, just like the people on this planet. You don't want to necessarily shake hands with every single person out there. But, they all have their own purposes for being and their own evolutionary growth factor that they're part of. So this is part of us growing up, and we're going to be growing up, we think, very, very recently, very, very soon, in more and more UFO activities happening all over the planet, from Germany to Brazil, obviously the US.
But it's not just UFOs, it's IFOs, identified chips, because they're no longer a mystery, unknown, but they're known in the sense that there is a higher consciousness raising that takes place. So if we go to the next picture, that we brought, you will see the area of Tulum, Mexico.
Wait, before we go there, I just want to say this is the most exciting time to be here as the universe opens up to human civilization and we start to expand our historic and intellectual and technological knowledge. We go into a golden age, possibly, of truly accepting our divinity and the potential for creating, which is what we love, Triea.
This is the unity of body, mind, and spirit. It's not technology. It's going beyond technology to realize the power of the mind, the power of higher thought forms. And there in Tulum, Mexico, Around the year 2000, I was lecturing to a group, and a man was taking a picture of his wife in the foreground. She turned around for the picture. At the same time, when I was chanting the ancient Hebrew Aramaic mantras, suddenly this great light appears around the side of my body. My translator in the back was shook up by this, and the light was there for a few seconds, long enough for me to feel a tremendous energy flow around my body. And I feel this is similar to what the mystical experiences are all about all throughout history. We have the ability to be in a place of sacred geometry or sacred gathering, sacred worship. And if we become the light, if we are using the vibrations of light, then we transform the temples of the earth into temples of understanding. The temples or churches, or for that matter, ashrams, or places from, shall we say, individual traditions into the plurality of the tree of life, which is the greater gift of purpose and experience.
But the whole thing really now, I think for each one of us, and I know that that's really our final closing on all of this, is to realize that we are not alone. We're not only not alone because of extraterrestrials, but we're not alone because of these beings that are also present with us. And this is part of our whole work together.
And this is why it's so important to visualize, as we do through the pictures. It's not simply being able to see beyond black and white. It's not simply going to a sacred place and standing and looking at the sun or moon. It's being the light, being the vibratory body vehicle, the musical instrument, the temple of the Holy Spirit that you were meant to be. It's the coming of the light, the breaking of the seventh seal, which is the higher chakra, the top of the brain or mind, through which the greater light shall appear.
Which is the opening of the eighth chakra.
See yourself as light. See your biological vehicle as a liquid light essence. Vibrate that light outside of you and welcome the light in, as we are all in this moment of transformation and transfiguration.
And we see this artistically there over Desiree's head with the vortex being opened. We ask that this greater light shall be upon us. We ask that this is the type of global Pentecostal experience where the greater light, called by the ancient mystics, the Shekinah, the divine glory, shall come down, and that each of us in our own unique way will be part of the gathering of the individual tribes into the tribe of peace and unity.
Right, so in addition to the seven chakras, there's the eighth, ninth, 10th, another seven chakras. That's our higher body. That's our higher presence. And we just need to become aware of that. And it starts by simply the first stage of awareness. Most of us have to open to understanding the interconnection.
As we see over Ellen's head, the sun reflection.
I'm turning into light.
The infinite way.
Because we are like the light of the sun. We have that quality to merge with the light.
If you permit me, I'd like to give a little mantra while you're watching Alan with the light over his head, or Desiree with the light.
Yes. Let's do that. And then I can't believe we're coming to a close, but we'll be wrapping up after that. And really, we're talking right now about our potential, aren't we? The potential for humanity into the future.
Exactly right.
We can see this. We can become this.
See the light.
Listen carefully. I want to sing the ancient mantra from the Most High God. El Elyon, El Elyon, El Elyon, El Elyon, El Elyon, Seven times for the seven seals, the seven chakras that are open in synchronicity. We ask that these vibrations gather people, particularly young people throughout the world, into the coming age of the divine spirit with the multitude of gifts, the greater compassion and love for all humanity, and the greater gathering of the human race as we again approach the higher heavenly dimensions that are being opened to us.
And we are the light, and we can become the light, and we can use the light to change.
Welcome it into your body. Welcome it into every cell, and let your vibration accelerate to the higher dimensions of being.
And let this light that was seen on Pentecost be also a constant call for the global Pentecost, that if all of our minds together shall be this great light, this beacon of light, this great projection of light, that people shall be guided to be with the light, the love of the living light, and the living light of love shall be with us.
So be it.
Beautiful. So be it, and so it is. Yes, 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 yes. Well,
Yeah.
I'm sure and certain that people listening to this are going to want to know how to stay in touch with you guys and what you've got coming up. And so please, each of you, please take a turn to share how people can reach out to you or what you've got going on.
Well, we're keysofenoch.org, and we have a lot going on in terms of especially virtual things right now, but many other lectures and talks. And we do it with Alan, and sometimes in Los Angeles and different places, Conscious Life Expo and different Contact in the Desert, a lot of different interesting places.
If you go to YouTube under Alan Steinfeld, New Realities, you're going to see upwards of 20, 30 films that we have done with him. We've also worked with the leading singers of the world. We're coming out with music that we did years ago with Alice Coltrane.
And we have songs with Stephen Halpern, and we have a new album coming out with Steve Halpern.
So wonderful new music that fits every occasion of realizing that we must think of the light rather than negativity. We must think of unity rather than separation. We must think of the higher mind, we will call the overself mind. And to that end, we have a whole series of beautiful pictures that you can order through the Academy that can take you through the various stages of awakening your higher overself to see the cosmic blueprint, the roadmap of the future.
Tell us about the Academy.
Well, the Academy is a network. It's international. It's all over the world. And we do studies and we look at science as well, because science is showing our spiritual reality is valid. That's what's happening right now.
You can find, we'll be at Contact in the Desert next year. June of 2021, we'll probably be at Conscious Life Expo.
And Ellen, you have also the Chronicles of Enoch that you did over 40 hours.
I have 40 hours of interviews with the Hurtaks on a beautiful little USB stick that looks like a kind of mezuzah type thing. Look for my book coming out, which has all the major UFO thinkers, Whitley Strieber, Linda Moulton Howe, Grant Cameron, and the Hurtaks, and many more. It's an anthology. It's called Making Contact. It's coming out from St. Martin's Press. It'll probably be out in May or June of next year. We might premiere it at Contact in the Desert. So times have caught up with us, Desiree and JJ.
And I would also say the synchronicities. People are starting to see these synchronicities in their lives that they're not planning, but this is coming from the higher forces, either your overself or higher guides. So people need to just be aware of it and tune into it and become part of it.
We want to thank our hostess for doing such a wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, Sherelle. This is our time to unify.
Yes, a time to unify. And so thank you, everybody who's been watching today. You can reach out to these wonderful people. Thank you all so much for joining us here on the Harmonic Convergence 2020. And we look forward to seeing you in the inner planes. We can look for you in there, right? As well as all that you're doing in the world.
Thank you.
Thank you. Blessings, everyone.
Blessings.